Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. All right, Arrayo 6. I believe this was the largest room that was excavated, and it had multiple floors. It had milling beds. There was one over here, one in this corner here. It had repaired walls, and again, going back to the hill slope deal, is that with that hill slope, right, I mean, you can see how close it is. So they were repairing walls all the time, and in all of our rooms, you could actually see where a big, huge chunk would have collapsed, and then they reconstructed it differently. Probably a new guy in town said, no, do it like this, this will be better. So a lot of repairs on these walls, which was cool to see too. Well, we also have this. This is a Tucson corrugated jar, and what was really interesting about this is that when we were excavating this room, when some of us were excavating this room, well, this was how we entered, right over here, and we left this last part right here because this was how we were getting in and out of the room. So we left that to be last to excavate, and we had some Grand Canyon semester students there with us. And I'll be doggone if the students didn't uncover the pot. And they were so excited. I was so jealous. But they were so excited I couldn't run on the parade and say, get out, that's my job. But really, to this day, I think I've seen his dad around. They still talk about how exciting that was. And that was good for them. That was cool. So that was big fun. We actually were here for 2 10-day sessions, and we were on road trips. And I will commend the NPS river guys on this trip. They were really helpful, and it was really important that we got all these artifacts downstream. So when this thing came up, we were just like, oh, good. But we made it to Phantom Ranch, and we actually helicoptered this out and all the other artifacts, because I don't think my heart could have withstood, you know, going down the rest of the river with all this great information. You know, that would stink. You know, where's the boat with the bowl? Well, that went over in, you know, lava. So we actually had to use helicopter assist on this, and I'd probably do it again if I had to. Yeah, the one other thing is that this was the room closest to the river, and there were really no evidence of flooding inside these rooms, or even too close by outside of the structures. Okay, last but not least, this is just around the corner from Furnace Flats, not even a mile or so. And we call this the Evo Site, and because this guy named Evo found the site. And the geomorphology at this site was really interesting. Again, it was built similarly as Furnace Flats. It was up against the Docks Cliff. And so we had a lot of that hill slope debris coming into these rooms. It wasn't so much filled with flood deposits. It was filled with debris slope deposits. What was really neat that Dr. Anderson and Neff found out a couple days right before the excavations were over, and this was one 10-day session, was that this was the last remnant of the midden area, right in here. This is the only thing really that exists that's pretty much intact, I'm going to say. And the rest of this downstream has eroded away. So what they're going to do is reconstruct the site layout based on what is left at the site. So again, this was probably a typical site layout, Puebloan site layout, and we're supposed to have a midden out there, but it's all gone. And that makes sense because actually there were hardly any artifacts that we found at this site. I mean, very few artifacts. So that working theory, that working hypothesis is so far so good. Let's see, the archaeology, single occupation, about 1150 to 1200 AD. That was our latest site, age-wise. It's the oldest that we were dating. What else? We are right along the side canyon here. And our excavations were concentrated right along here. And one of those early pictures I showed you, that I'm sure you remember, was where the walls were coming out, that the drainage impacted. So we'll zoom right into some of the features we found just along the drainage. And this was really cool, feature 7. We actually were surprised at what we found. This is remains of a hull structure, and there are just these beautiful burnt beams, posts right in here. Right next to it was a storage unit that was, again, it was over my head. And I know that's not saying much, but it was pretty high. And a slab-lined floor, really nice, tight, nicely built storage unit. Over here was kneeling beds, activity area, as was right in here. So you could imagine, you know, the people sitting outside, hanging outside in the shade, processing their food, dumping it in there, you know, and just hanging out, chit-chatting about daily activities. It's kind of neat. This is another structure that was excavated. Another surprise to us. It was a very large room, square living, or perhaps another kiva. We just don't know. Had your hearth. They put the ashes right in here. And then if you follow that line, what we thought this whole time during monitoring was another structure, actually was, after further investigation of digging out this other structure, it turned out to be the chimney to this structure. And it was probably about a meter or two away from where we were. So that was really fascinating to figure that one out, because the whole time we're like, oh no, that's structure. It's like, no, we were lying the whole time. It's actually related to this room here. Again, a few artifacts were found here, and the beams in this, like you saw in the hull structure, the beams, the posts were just beautifully preserved. It was amazing. I mean, we were taking out, you know, a good several French loaf size beams, and so we'll hope to get some good data out of that one, out of several of those. Here's some take-home points I'm going to throw at you. How do you like that? Preliminary take-home points. Prehistoric people lived on the general landscape that we see today. So there have been some changes, whether they're major in some areas or not. Generally, we're saying that, you know, it looks pretty much like it did back then. Erosion and depositional processes of flooding, debris flows, hill slope, wind-blowing sands were unique to all sites. So you really can't say that every site that's located along the river corridor was impacted by flooding. You can't say that every site was impacted by hill slope debris. So it really takes on-site, individual site investigations to identify really what was happening at that site back then and even today. So that was pretty good information there. Archaeology-wise, well, I think because of the lack of excavation in the canyon along the corridor, which is a good thing and I would promote, we were thinking, because of talking to the tribes and stuff, that this is a sacred, extremely special place, special location. And because of that, maybe their daily activities were not the same, you know, because there are ceremonies even today. They make special offerings and whatnot to this canyon. And so we're like, well, maybe their lifestyles were different back then. But so far, and it's preliminary, we're thinking that their daily life, the daily structures of their dwellings, probably look like it did on the rim today. But that is still something we really need to look into further. And we are going to, when the excavations are done, Ted and I are going to get with the tribes, and we're going to lay out most of the artifacts that we've collected, and site maps, and anything they want, and spend a couple days with us and say, you know what, here's what we found here, this is how we're interpreting it, what do you guys think? So that we're also going to incorporate tribal perspectives on this whole program. We're really looking forward to that.